The worst humans of all time. See what they got, man.
About a month ago, somebody sent me this iceberg chart containing the worst humans of all time, from the most insane serial killers and cult leaders to SoundCloud rappers, televangelists, and
Who's making these icebergs? Like, who's keeping record of this?
YouTubers. This iceberg chart has all the worst guys rolled up into one. Two things I want to mention before we get into this. I'm just going to skip all these guys at the top here, just because everybody already knows these ones. Too mainstream, skip. There are plenty of videos out there that'll explain to you what Hitler or Jeffrey Epstein did, and so I want my video to focus more on the fringe and insane people at the bottom of the iceberg you don't hear about every day. And the other thing is, I hate this as much as you. YouTube can be so overly sensitive these days, and so there will be moments where I'll have to be a little careful with my language, but I'm gonna make it so you can still easily read between the lines. All right, let's get into it. Nathan Larson. So this guy is just pretty much unbelievable. He was from Colorado, and his first recorded run-in with the law came in 2008 when he purposely emailed the Secret Service saying that he intended to kill the president of the United States. Like, just cold emailed them.
Wait, is the you can just email the Secret Service, like you can just hit them up like, yo, what's good? And they're gonna read that shit. I mean, I guess wait, you can just do that though. And also this guy has to be, I feel like some of these people who like do these type of, for lack of better words, like crash out things like this, I think some of them might be, want to like self-delete and all that shit, bro. I genuinely do feel like some of them are like that.
Well, after he sent this email, the Secret Service did track him down and they interviewed him. And in the interview, he didn't even like back off saying it was a joke. Apparently, he doubled down saying it was like a serious threat. They tried getting more information out of him beyond this though, but he wouldn't provide any more details of his supposed plan.
It's a cool
or even if
Minecraft
he was trying to target
world, not gonna
Obama
lie.
or Bush. So the other thing about Larson you should probably know is he tried to run for office on a couple occasions. He tried to run for both a congressional and a House spot, and you might be wondering, what platforms was this guy running on? Jesus, this guy was horrible. He wanted to legalize child abuse, and I mean like...
Oh my gosh. Look at what this shit is saying, bro. Look at what Boiler was claiming the parable of the automobile that man-boy sex is only harmful because society prohibits it. This is what hypothesis that perhaps should be tested in one of our lab. What? Getting kids into the workforce at a young age will help to relieve some of their boredom, since even if their job is boring, at least they'll have some spending money and keep them. Oh my gosh, they can have a sense of pride in their accomplishments, being able to provide for a bro. The issues of that an adult that may or may not be very important in and of themselves, but once this guy's fucking insane. Let me actually do this to anybody who wants to read this. Here's your moment. Wow. He's
getting
actually
rid
insane.
of the age of consent, legalize insider trading, legalize suicide, just like straight up saying he wanted to legalize...
Bro, like I said, I think a lot of these people who be doing these crash out things generally I don't think they want to live. I don't think they want to live. I think they just want to, because there's no way this is of sound mind.
But then
there's no way that this person is of sound mind.
He went independent. So there's that. There were instances where he would basically self-identify as a pedophile. Of course, none of his campaigns got very far. Well, so how did this guy end up in jail? You might be wondering. Well, he ended up messaging an underage girl online, got her to send illicit material to him. He tried basically flying her across the country, and he got caught in the middle of doing this, and he ended up going to prison. He ended up starving himself in prison. Robert Thompson and John Venables. So
I did say they genuinely don't want to be alive. He's doing the worst possible acts, one of the worst possible acts you can do. They don't want to live, bro. I genuinely believe they don't want to live. They want to see as much chaos as possible for no other reason than this pure chaos.
I think these might be the youngest criminals on this list. These two people were 10 years old when they
Damn.
abducted and murdered another kid who was 2 years old.
Oh
Of course, they'd
my
eventually be tracked
gosh.
down and they'd have to go on trial. But as you might imagine, the trial was pretty weird because these guys were 10 years old. You know,
I
sources
wonder, were they trialed as adults? I feel like at 10, you're too young to be charged with adult because I know like there's cases where if you're like 16, 15, you can be trialed as an adult depending on the severity of your case. I'm not too sure if that's correct. That's just my thinking.
about this situation say that they were determined to be old enough to know right from wrong, but it seems like they could never get an explicit reason for why the kids even did it. Since they were so young when they committed the crime, they ended up going to these secure units where they stayed for the next 8 years before being released. After they were released, they were given new names and they were kind of relocated. Now, Robert Thompson
Wow.
seems like after he got set free, seems like he has kind of laid low and hasn't gotten into any more trouble. However, John Venables, on the other hand, has had some pretty bad issues. Namely, his parole officer caught him trying to destroy a hard drive he owned with a tin opener. And well, when they checked the hard drive, gas. So he's been in and out of custody ever since. The I-70 killer. So, of course, in the United States, there's an interstate I-70.
Is this the one that I keep seeing trend? That it's one of the worst ones? I think there's another one. Is it 40 something? I don't know. I can't remember, but I remember seeing there was a whole video dedicated to it about how that interstate is one of the worst, well, not interstate, I think highway was one of the worst highways to ever in America. That there's so many crashes, there's so many whatever. I'm not too
And in the
sure,
spring
but I
of
know I've heard about it.
1992, 6 people were murdered at places that ran along this interstate. However, the thing is little is known about the guy who actually committed these killings. Probably the most important details about this case is pretty much all of the victims were brunette women who were not very tall, except there was this one guy who got killed who had long hair, and so some people suspect the killer mistaked him for a woman. All of the killings were done with a .22 caliber gun, and most sources will say that they were shot in the back of the head or execution style, and all of the killings took place at specialty stores that were very close to I-70. There have been
Damn.
some composite
RIP to them,
sketches of
bro.
what this guy might have looked like. Here's what it could be. Some people also suspect that this killer might have been related to some killings that were later done in Texas, but this connection has
So
never
he's
been
still not
officially
been found?
confirmed. And so till this day,
Oh shit. You know what? This guy could have been arrested, right? And nobody can link him to this crime. Or he still hasn't been found. Those are the two stories that could happen. He can actually be in jail right now, and we wouldn't know because they aren't able to link those crimes to him. Or he's just out here, not arrested at all.
this case remains unsolved. In 2021, the police released images of what this killer might look like today, and this is what they showed. He's obviously pretty old now. Joseph
Yeah.
Mengele
Oh, never mind. That nigga's dead. He's probably dead or dying as we
was
speak.
a Nazi physician, and he is probably most widely known for the experiments that he ran on people being held in Nazi concentration camps. I'm not going to go into much detail when it comes to the actual experiments that he ran, but they were pretty much as horrible and torturous as you can imagine. No consent was provided. Unfortunately, after World War II, Joseph Mengele
I mean, I'm pretty sure back then they didn't even care about consent. Weren't they doing it on weren't they doing it on kidnapped individuals and individuals of a particular hey man, with YouTube you can't say certain things. But I'm pretty sure you know when you're talking about those type of individuals who were involved in the World War II thing, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was all just kidnapped people. They were forced at their will. They had no choice. I think it's one of those.
wasn't really brought to justice because he managed to escape to South America, where he just lived out the rest of his life after the war. Bela Kiss. So Bela Kiss was this Austro-Hungarian guy who in the early 1900s was living a pretty
I thought he was gonna say Persian. He looked Persian for a second.
solid life running a successful tin business, and he just overall had a good relationship with his community. However, it seems like things started going off the rails when in 1912 he apparently married a woman who would shortly go on to cheat on him with an artist, at which point he murdered both his wife and this artist. Now, what makes this kind of a standout case is after he murdered these two people, he decided he was going to try and preserve their bodies by pickling them in giant steel drums filled with methanol. It seems like what would start happening after this point was he started putting ads in the local paper looking for women he could meet up with, and he would repeat this practice over and over again. Now, in 1914, Bella
Repeat this practice as in you would kill them? Or what? Was I not paying attention? Was I not paying attention? Repeat this practice as in kill them? Or what was going on?
Kiss ended up getting drafted into the Austro-Hungarian army, and he left his house in the hands of an old housekeeper guy. Well, a couple years into the war, word came out that Bella probably had died while fighting, and so the landlord of the house thought at this point he might as well start cleaning up the house and cleaning up some of Bella's stuff so he could start having new people live in the house. But when he started cleaning up, he ended up cracking open one of the barrels and seeing what was inside of them. And well, let's say he found himself in quite the pickle. Yeah, he had like 20 of these pickling barrel things. He was telling people that he was stockpiling fuel in them in case he needed it for the war, but that was not what was happening. Now, people have speculated that Bella might have not actually died in the war and somehow ended up deserting and making an escape to some other country, even making it to the United States.
His body wasn't
There's even
recovered.
been reported sightings of this guy, although there's no really good hard evidence from what I've seen. Shiro Ishii. Shiro Ishii is a guy who did research for the Japanese military during World War II for developing biological weapons. He started out as an army.
By that statement alone, you just know he had to do some fucked up shit. One, they're already at war. They already have some property, prisoners, or something like that. And you know, bro, anything that has the word biological, just know some fucked up shit just happened, bro. Ain't nobody is signing up to be test dummy for anything in the name of, oh yeah, we're trying to figure out how to make better bioweapons. Who is signing up for that shit? I am not signing up for it. you got me you got me fucked up, bro. I can guarantee you. I can guarantee you some fucked up shit happened.
Physician and medical school instructor, and he went on to personally lobby for the Japanese military to create a biological weapons program. He ended up securing it and founded his own laboratory, and this is how he ultimately became the director of Unit 731. And
Oh
Unit
yeah, I've heard of this
731
before.
was a research facility ran by Japan, and it conducted some of the worst experiments on people you can imagine. The research facility was located in
Look at Japan now. And look at Japan now. It's crazy when you see like this whole change when you start learning about the history of countries and just watch how like they become so different. But it's crazy to see Japan has become such a, you know, a desired place for people outside of Japan to go to. And then we learn about this. Shout out
China
the
because
Japanese
Japan
though.
had control over parts of China at the time, and most of the experiments were ran on Chinese prisoners. The experiments they did included purposely infecting people with anthrax, typhoid, dysentery, plague-infected fleas. They tested the limits of frostbite. They infected the water supplies of unknowing villagers. They
my gosh,
airdropped
bro.
like diseased fleas.
Like, how do you even do that as a person, though? Like, how do you say, yeah, we're gonna poison these people and just watch? Like, how do you do that shit, bro? How do you become that desensitized to that shit? Me, like, hearing this shit is making me uncomfortable. And I'm preventing myself from visualizing it, bro. Like, how do you become desensitized to that shit as a scientist or quote unquote scientist? These people are different, bro. Once you go to army or all
and the
those things,
experiments
bro,
killed just a ton of
you
people.
just become a
Some
whole
other
different
stuff
person.
about Shiro Ishii is it looks like he played a role in trying to develop a plan that was codenamed Cherry Blossoms at Night, which was this kind of last-ditch effort the Japanese were developing to attack the United States in World War II. And basically the plan was they would have Japanese aircraft fly over to the mainland west coast of the United States and drop fleas with certain diseases like the plague onto it. On top of that, they also considered having submarines sail to the United States, and the crew would basically climb out of the submarines and run onto the mainland United States, infected with diseases, and try and spread the disease as much as possible. Of course, this plan never ended up carrying out, but it was obviously this is pretty horrible. Of course, after World War II ended, Shiro Ishii was pretty concerned that he was going to get, punished for the war crimes he committed. And so to try and throw the Americans off of his tail, he actually staged a fake funeral with attendees and priests and everything. It didn't end up working, and the Americans actually did end up tracking him down. But once the Americans tracked him down, they ended up cutting him a deal where basically he would be granted immunity from being prosecuted with war crimes if he gave up the information on what Unit 730.
There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way they let this nigga walk. There's no way. Committed one of the worst controlled, one of, I'm not saying the worst, but one of the worst human controlled testing imaginable. And he's like, yeah, just give us the information and you're free to go. This is crazy, bro. That is fucking crazy.
One managed to discover throughout its many tests. So he ended up getting to live out the rest of his life. Pedro Lopez.
I wonder, like, what do the kids of these people think? I mean, I guess that could have been like maybe somebody in my family was, of that caliber, and I just don't know. Maybe we're all just, our previous ancestors were some horrible people, and we all don't know. Because, I mean, outside of our immediate family, a lot of the average person is not interested in knowing their entire bloodline. Like, we could actually have some of those people in our families and we wouldn't know. Yeah, so I guess I just answered myself. Those kids, those families probably don't know. Some of them probably do and just choose to keep quiet about it.
Was a serial killer who had an absurd kill count. If you go on Wikipedia, they rank him as the number 3 highest killing serial.
There's fucking rankings for serial killers. I mean, I'm not surprised. He has 300 plus. Is that 300 plus confirmed kills? Or this might be 300 plus suspected kills. And then it might have like 110 confirmed kills. Maybe, I don't know. Let's just watch. Why am I trying to predict what he's about to say? Let's just watch.
Killer. Basically, Pedro Lopez was born in Colombia.
Yeah, what did he say?
If you go on Wikipedia, they rank him as the number 3 highest killing serial killer. Basically, Pedro...
Oh, he didn't confirm it. I'm gonna look it up for all those who are interested. Like I said, like I predicted, bro. Like I predicted. Look at this. Look at this. Proven victims and possible victims, right? And then look at Pedro Lopez. I hope I pronounced that correctly. 100 confirmed or proven victims and 300 plus suspected victims, possible victims. I was right, bro. I was right. Just had to do that for those who were interested.
Colombia. Of course, he had a pretty bad childhood, and eventually, after a couple-year stint in jail for stealing a car, his killing spree really kicked off. It's really horrible, but from what I've seen, it seems like he was kind of able to just wander through Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, abducting and murdering just a ton of people. It seems like he especially targeted indigenous people in the area and just people who were super vulnerable. He eventually got caught because he just tried abducting someone in broad daylight at this shopping district. In prison, he would...
Why that crash out? Why would he suddenly change his ways to doing it in broad public? You think he got addicted to this shit?
Apparently claimed that he murdered 100 people in Colombia, at least 110 in Ecuador, and many more in Peru. Initially, officials were pretty skeptical of these numbers, but then he went on to lead them to a gravesite with 53 of his victims. Now, in doing research for
This
this,
is
it was pretty
crazy.
hard to get a solid number for his actual true kill count. If you add up his confessions, it's in the 300s, but it looks like the confirmed kills is only 53. I've even seen some people speculate that the actual number lands somewhere around 70, but it's hard to tell. He was sentenced to prison in 1980, but the thing is at the time in Ecuador, the max prison sentence was only 16 years. And he actually managed
Oh
to get
my
out even
God.
before that. He only spent
Oh
14
my
years in
God.
prison. After he got out, he ended up getting sent back to Colombia, and he was actually able to live out the rest of his life as a free man. Apparently, he was last
Wow.
sighted back in 1999. His death has never been confirmed, but he would be 77 years old if he was still alive today.
Yo, these niggas are getting us off. Just like, oh my gosh, bro. How? Yeah, I can't believe this. I'm trying to find something to say, but I genuinely can't believe they just got he just got to walk. I mean, he technically did serve his sentence, but it should have been higher.
Luis Garavito. I'm not going to talk about this guy too much because his story is fairly similar to the person I just talked about. He is another serial killer with an absurdly high kill count, and he also operated in
193 or
Colombia. Fortunately, he actually did get
221.
arrested and died in prison. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris. Apparently, these guys met in prison and apparently bonded over their shared desire to abuse women. After they got out of prison, they bought a van and went on to abduct and torture.
This gotta be the worst meetup reasons to be friends. I could. What is going on, bro? Like, what is going on with people to the fact that you need to be doing this type of shit, bro? Like, they met up and were like, yeah, I like torturing, women as well. And I heard that you like it as well. And like, yeah, let's be friends. Let's go do these crimes together now. Like, when you look up, how people are feeling socially isolated nowadays. Motherfuckers were bonding over this type of shit back then. Probably still now. I mean, I assume still now looking at some of the Epstein shit. Like, bro, that's gotta be the worst. I just can't believe it.
5 girls. They ended up getting caught because they were apparently bragging about what they were doing to somebody, and that person ended up reporting them to the police.
Hey, good
They
on that person,
recorded
bro.
audio of them torturing their victims, and it's been said that the FBI Academy will actually use this audio tape to try and train and desensitize FBI agents to kind of understand the reality of how horrible torture can get. Now, I've seen this claim about
This
the
is
FBI
crazy, bro.
using this audio tape a couple places online, but I can't seem to figure out exactly.
No, I wanted to join the FBI. When I was younger, I wanted to join the FBI. A small part of me still wants to, because like the movies still make it seem cool, but when you learn the reality of it and you learn that, oh yeah, I'm actually gonna be dealing with people with all backstories who were abused when they were younger, turned into like it's actually sad when you think about it. But yeah.
Where this claim comes from. It might be true, but I cannot find the original source. Dean Coral was just a horrible serial killer based in Texas. Probably the most interesting thing from his case is one of his accomplices actually ended up flipping on him, and right before he was about to kill 2 more people, the accomplice ended up killing him and then reporting the whole operation to police. This guy was known as the
Wow.
Candy Man because his family owned a candy company and he would offer it to kids. So Gary Glitter was a glam rock from England. You've probably heard his most popular song. It's called Rock and Roll Part 2. If you've ever been to like a major like sporting event or something, you've probably heard this song
90
before.
million
I would play a
plays.
clip of it, but I'd get hit by a copyright protection missile from Universal Group if I did, so just go look it up yourself. In 1997, he got arrested because he sent his computer into a repair shop, and they found CSAM material on it. And
Always. Why? Why do they all go for shit with kids, bro? With all the money they have, all the freedom they have, why do they always go for kids? I just don't
So
understand
down
it.
the road, he would spend 2 months in prison for this. After he got out of prison, he ended up leaving the country and bouncing around Asia for a while. Of course, while he was in Vietnam, he ended up getting in trouble too. After he got back in the
You
UK,
was still doing that shit. You was still doing that shit, even though you went to different countries.
he was arrested because it came out that he abused 3 women back in the 1970s, and this would
Oh
land him
my
back in jail.
gosh.
So he's currently in prison right now. While rewatching
Yeah,
this, I
thank
realized it's a
God.
little too vague. To be clear, he was convicted of attempted rape, 4 counts of indecent assault, and 1 of having sex with a girl under the age of 13, and all of the victims were very young. He actually got
Thank God he's
paroled
still in
after
jail.
8 years of being in jail, but after he got out, it's been reported that he immediately tried accessing the dark
Oh
web.
yeah, nah. There should be no instance of him having parole anymore. You got out. You got your, a somewhat version of freedom parole, and he went straight back to doing some bullshit. His parole, his sentence expires in February 2031. If you guys can see this up there. 16 years in 2015 for sexual abuse in schoolgirls. Sentence expires in February 2023. 2020 31. That's an awkward number to say. 2020. No, it's not 2020 31. What am I saying? 2031. Yeah, that was awkward to say.
Web once he got out of prison, which was violating the terms of his parole, and so he immediately got recalled. This guy's horrible. So
That should add more, in my opinion. When you commit the crime that you were originally arrested for, I feel like that should add more. Not maybe the same sentence again, but like it should add, I don't know, like +5 years to your original sentence. Because if you're arrested for breaking into cars, right? And you, let's say you get parole, let's say you're out on bond and all that shit, and you do it again. One, you should have learned that, yeah, you're gonna get arrested. It's wrong to do all this shit, right? But you learned a tough lesson that you got sent to prison and all that shit. But you do it again, that should add more to your sentence. But I guess not in every crime, because I understand where certain crimes can be done for survival and can be looked at in a different light. But yeah, just an interesting thing that I had on my mind.
entry on the iceberg list is kind of bizarre, but basically, this guy is the eldest son of the Duggar family. This is the family behind the popular reality TV show 19 Kids and
19 kids
Counting.
and
He's the
counting.
eldest son.
Fuck.
Now, the first major controversy with this guy is as a young teenager, Josh Duggar ended up molesting 5 girls, 4 of whom were his own sisters, and the whole
Oh
situation was
my
just really
gosh.
mishandled too. But the controversies don't stop there. There's this website called Ashley Madison, and it's a dating website designed for people who want to cheat on their partners. Most of the people on this website are
There's sites for cheating. Why not just break up? Why cheat? Why not just break up and go find somebody else? Where's the difficulty in all of that? Why not just break up and go find somebody else? Like
largely just like
you make your life difficult for no reason.
married men who are trying to cheat. But back in 2015, the website had a huge data leak where a bunch of the accounts featured on the website had their identities revealed, and he was found in this data leak. He was on Ashley Madison trying to cheat on his wife. But of
They used they used their real names. Are these niggas stupid? I can't believe they used their real names. Why? Why would you use your real name? Why? Do you ever think to yourself, why? That's actually dumb, bro.
course, things wouldn't end here.
Especially on a site like that, like, why? Why not come up with an alias? Well, actually, we don't know the full story. They could have had aliases, and maybe their credit card info or debit card info was attached to that profile, and that's how they got their names included? We don't know. I don't know. I don't know about the
because
whole
down the
thing.
line, he would get caught downloading CSAM material onto his
Oh
computer,
my
and he was sentenced to
gosh.
12 years in prison for that. Jimmy
You get 12 years? You get 12 years? Damn. I thought it would have been more. I genuinely thought it would have been
Savile
more.
was this
I mean, 12 years is not a little amount, but still, like, I would feel like you should be able to get more time.
British media personality who hosted two very popular television
Jimmy
shows for a time.
Savile
One of the
or
shows he
Savile.
hosted is one where he would like show off popular music at the time, and the other one was a show called Jimmy'll Fix It, which was this like reality game show TV thing. He was very popular for a time, even rubbing shoulders with some of the most elite people of England, even apparently befriending Margaret Thatcher and other members of British royalty. However, after his death in 2011, it was revealed that he was a enormous creep. Unbelievable numbers. The
200. Most of his victims were children and vulnerable women. Many of the offenses took place at hospitals. He used his celebrity status and charity work to avoid detection. Are all these people, well, not all of them, as we've seen from the Japanese guy and the other guy, I forgot his name, are they all just doing creep shit? And I know the creep, using the word creep is kind of not representing how severe and how horrible their crimes that they are committing. But bro, like they're all just doing some truly fucked up shit. Like why? Holy fucking shit, does this not look like Rick Rubin? Is that his name, Rick Rubin or whatever? I was like, well, there's no way he's doing fucked up shit, right? Just looks like him. Oh my gosh.
Menendez brothers. Joseph and Eric Menendez were sons of
I've heard
Jose
something
and
about
Kitty
these two.
Menendez. Now, their father, Jose, was a super rich executive who worked for RCA Records. They owned a super nice house in Beverly Hills. It's a real
Damn.
beauty. But to kind of cut to the chase here, things would come to a head
So
when
they
in
had financial wise, they had a good life.
1989, when the brothers were just 21 and 18 years old, walked into the den of their mansion and murdered both of their parents with shotguns. They then left the scene of the crime. They kind of tried to just go about the rest of their day, trying to look innocent, like they tried going to the movies. But when they came back later that night, they realized that the police still hadn't figured out what had happened at the house, and their parents were still just like laying there deceased. They had assumed the police would be called because there were gunshots, but it just didn't happen. The boys then called the police and basically pretended that they had just returned home and had found their parents dead, and they
Oh
had
my
no idea
gosh.
what had happened. They tried to say that they suspected their parents had died from some kind of work-related mob attack. Now, after their parents' death, the Menendez brothers would inherit their father's money from his life insurance policy. This, of course, would be a lot of money, and over the course of just a couple months after the incident, the boys would spend over $700,000 of the money on all sorts of like luxury goods, like a private tennis coach, and then Rolex watches and new cars, like a Porsche and a new Jeep Wrangler. They were going to like expensive basketball games. In fact, there's a basketball card that you can see them in the background because they were on this crazy spending spree. Unfortunately for them, basically Eric would end up confessing to his psychologist.
Oh wow. So the cops, I wonder how close or how far the cops were actually from solving the case. He actually confessed.
That they had actually murdered their parents, and this ultimately led to the men being arrested. Now, in court, the prosecutors tried to frame the Menendez brothers as killing their parents as kind of this selfish attempt to get their money. However, the boys argued that they killed their parents out of self-defense due to a repeated pattern of sexual abuse from their dad.
Um the interesting thing about this is that there's a list of things that predict violence, right? And this list is just it's not like something like, oh, if this thing does happen to you, you are going to commit violence. It's just that if this thing happens, that there is a likelihood of violence occurring. And one of the things on that list is trauma and how trauma can lead to violence. And we're seeing it displayed right here. Again, I'm just gonna say again, just because you experienced trauma does not mean you are more likely to be violent than a person who hasn't experienced trauma. It was just a list covering cases and showing like, yeah, if something like this happened, the person is will commit, violence to the person who did commit that, that act on them, or a person who similar who is trying to commit that act on them, but now they're at a, okay, in this example, at an adult age and able to defend themselves and all that shit. That's crazy. I was reading about this the other day.
And the fear that he was going to try and kill them eventually to hide the truth. Now, this is really a complex case, but from what I've seen, I would say some of the evidence is sort of convincing, while some of it is really not. It's a lot to get into. The brothers were ultimately sentenced to life in prison. In recent years, this story has gotten
Aren't they, isn't, what am I trying to say? I'm saying a lot of shit. Didn't I hear something about like parole or something for them? I swear I heard something
a
like
lot
that.
of popularity. It's got a Netflix series now. You can go watch it. Due to new evidence coming forward in recent years, the brothers were resentenced in 2025
Oh
to 50
my
years to life
gosh.
with the possibility of parole. So now they could potentially have
Resentenced.
the chance of getting out. This really is a complex case, though. Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson started acting at a very young age. He appeared in quite a few commercials as a kid. And as the years went on, he ended up getting bigger and bigger roles, eventually showing up in TV shows and stuff. Probably his most popular role is when he played Hyde in the TV show, That 70s Show. In 2023, he was convicted of some pretty horrible crimes, of
Oh
which he
my
is now currently
gosh.
serving. Probably one of the more notable aspects of this case, though, is Danny Masterson is a member of the Church of Scientology, and so were the women who accused him of the crimes. The women who accused also said that the Church of Scientology was trying to take steps to try and prevent Danny from being prosecuted, and it's been alleged that
Oh
during the
wow.
court case as it was
Is
playing out, a
that
lot of
is the Church of Scientology internationally recognized, or is it just a US thing? Actually, I'm gonna look it up. I have the ability to look it up. I'm gonna look it up for everybody who's interested, including myself. To all those who were interested, it's recognized in the US and in some countries, but not as a religion, but rather more like a non-profit organization or a public benefit organization in certain countries. But in the US, it is recognized fully as a religious non-profit organization.
people working on the case trying to prosecute Danny were like mysteriously being harassed by an unknown group of people, like vandalizing or tampering with their property or being run off the road while driving and other harassment like that. Although I should point out, none of this has ever been confirmed totally, but that's something kind of creepy about this
It was
case.
them.
Ian
It
Watkins.
was them.
So Ian Watkins was the lead singer and frontman for this band called Lost Prophets. They make alternative new rock metal stuff. I'm gonna be honest, it's not very good. To cut to the chase here, though,
Yo, nah, he a hoe for that. Why you say that, brother? Yo, bro, niggas are just trying to make music, bro. Nigga said, to be honest, that shit was not good. Yo, why you do them like that, bro? Nah, why you do them
this
like
guy
that,
is
bro?
legitimately like evil. I can't really get into the details of
Most
what he was doing,
dangerous, could be the most dangerous sex offender I have ever seen. A police officer said that. Oh my gosh.
but it's like
What did he
viscerally
even
horrible.
do?
He was sentenced to 35 years in prison for what he did, and so were two of his fans that sort of like helped enable the behavior. Like there was a
Two of his
point in the
fans.
case where he had an encrypted hard drive on his computer, and the police needed to like figure out what the password is, and they eventually figured out that this is what his password was, and later
Wow. I mean, this is a person who's not, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. What can you even say to this?
Down the line, he was like caught on record saying that he did it all for the mega lols. Like this guy's horrible. He ended up
Yeah.
getting killed in prison though.
Oh
Gertrude
my gosh.
Baniszewski.
Why did he say that so nonchalantly? Oh, not even nonchalant, more as in like as a passing, like, oh yes, it's just the wind. Yeah, he ended up just dying. They killed him in prison.
So Sylvia and Jenny Likens were these two girls whose parents worked for the carnival. However, after money started kind of getting tight and the mom got arrested, these girls were set to no longer live with their parents. And instead, the father decided that he would instead have them live with this woman he knew by the name of Gertrude Baniszewski and her other 7 kids. The idea was originally that the dad would pay $20 a week for Gertrude to take care of the kids. But after the kids moved in, the payments started slowing down.
Such an odd, such an odd situation to be in, like for all parties. It's so weird.
And this is when some really horrible abuse started. It seems like Gertrude didn't like either of the 2 kids, but she especially did not like Sylvia. And as time went on, her abuse towards Sylvia just escalated worse and worse, like forcing her to do humiliating stuff in front of people, like having her carve messages into her abdomen, like scalding baths, like
Oh my
inviting
gosh.
neighborhood kids to get in on the abuse. It was really bad. And there was even one point after the injuries started getting super horrible and visible, Gertrude basically forced Sylvia to write a fake letter to her parents saying that the injuries that she had on her right now were not from Gertrude. It was actually because she had ran off with some boys she had met at school who ended up beating her up. She was basically forced to write a fake letter about what had happened. Not long
Oh
after
my
this forced
gosh.
letter she wrote, she would end up succumbing to her injuries and passing away. Gertrude ended up being charged with first-degree murder in this case. She got a life sentence, but she was ultimately able to get out of prison on parole in 20 years. As to why she hated Sylvia so much in particular, I can't really get a perfectly good answer, but most sources will say something along the lines of she was just jealous of Sylvia for her youth or beauty or potential or something like.
It's a kid. What else do they have? It's a kid. They have youth. How are you going to be jealous of somebody who is young? That's all they have. I'm young. That's it. There's nothing that should make you jealous
That.
because
Andrea
of that.
Yates.
Like, there's nothing that should make you jealous. Like, yeah, I'm young. That's it. What? What? Oh my gosh. And she got out in 20 years. It's this is shit. This shit is so crazy, bro. Like it's draining me slowly and slowly every time. Each case is just bad after bad, bro.
This is a pretty brutal one. Basically, Andrea Yates was this pretty promising woman. You know, she was a valedictorian in high school. She went on to graduate college and become a registered nurse. However, things would start going downhill when she got married with this man by the name of Russell, who was actually a NASA engineer. Well, Russell was very Christian, and these Christian values kind of ended up getting instilled into Andrea too. This couple ended up having 5 kids together. However, as time went on, Andrea Yates ended up having a pretty steep mental decline. She ended up exhibiting symptoms of postpartum depression, psychosis, schizophrenia. It eventually got to the point where she was having religious delusions about Satan.
I've heard. Well, I'm not too sure if this is what he's gonna talk about, but I've heard of a thing that is new called religious psychosis. Now, I didn't actually look it up, but I heard the term. I was like, religious psychosis, and the way the context it was explained to me was like, how all these people suddenly, get very super religious. They start, saying things that they weren't saying before and all those type of things. That was the context it was explained to me, in that like some of those people are going through religious psychosis. Not all of them, but some of them. I was like, yo, the fuck is religious psychosis? I never knew there was a word for this shit. Every time I see somebody who suddenly goes hyper religious, and there's sticking with your religious values and sticking to what your religion says, right? And then there are people who just go above and beyond and want to dictate what others, like make them want to submit or follow their religion despite what they believe. Like they want them to force them to follow their religion. I was like, bro, I always thought like, oh yeah, he's just crazy, or it's just a weird person. I never knew there was a term called religious psychosis. Keep in mind, again, I did not look up the term because I was not interested like that, but I was fascinated by the fact that there is a term. So my understanding of it could be wrong, or it could be somewhat correct. But if you want to look it up, you do have the freedom to look it up and read about it.
Communicating to her about stuff like that. Now, to kind of spare you the specific details, she would go on to end up murdering all 5 of her kids,
Oh
largely
my
because of
gosh. If you see in the bottom left of the screen right now what she did, oh my fucking gosh.
mental illness she was suffering from and the kind of failed attempts to try and make it better. She was initially found guilty of her crimes, but she ended up getting a retrial and was found not guilty by way of insanity.
What? What? Oh, like, bro, of the whole insanity claims, bro, I wonder, like, what's next? What's next when you say, like, I need to start reading up on it, bro, because I need to start reading up on it, bro. Because sometimes I be hearing, like, people, like, they get off certain crimes because, what I'm saying, they plead insanity and all those shit. Like, what's next though? I never read what's next after the insanity plea. Like, just get off because of that? Oh my gosh, bro. It's crazy.
Igor Sapruniu. So
It's just to show, like, not everything is black and white, bro. Not everything is black and white.
Igor Sapruniuk was one of the Nepropovsk maniacs. I'm not going to talk about this one too much. They were responsible for creating a video known as 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. David Parker Ray. So
I'm not gonna look it up. Nothing good can be. First of all, it's 3 guys. I assume it's either a girl involved or them beating each other with a hammer. Yeah, there's nothing good that can come from that title. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna look it up, and I don't encourage any of you guys to look it up because it might be graphic. To the fact that he skipped it like that, it might be that graphic.
I've talked about this guy in a previous video, so I'm mostly going to skip over this one here. You can go watch this other video if you want to know more about it. Basically, this guy is known as the Toy Box Killer. Converted like a semi-truck trailer into this like torture dungeon. It's horrible. All right,
my
Diane
gosh.
Downs.
Oh
This
my,
way
yeah,
this story
nah.
is usually told is Diane
The
Downs
way he's
was this
skipping certain things, yeah.
woman who lived in Oregon, and she really wanted to get with this guy by the name of Robert Knickerbocker. But Mr. Robert Knickerbocker
Robert
didn't
who?
want to get with of Robert Knickerbocker. But Mr. Robert
Crazy last
Knickerbocker didn't
names.
want to get with her because she already
The crazy last name. Robert what? But I can't even repeat what that nigga just said. What nigga? Wow, bro. Yeah, nah, that's crazy last
had
names.
kids and he didn't want to deal with them. So Diane came up with this plan that she would try and kill her children to solve this problem. So what she did is one
Wow.
evening in Springfield, Oregon, she went on a drive on one of the quieter roads on the outskirts of the town, and she basically shot her kids. She then like shot herself in the arm and then drove to the
To make
hospital
it seem like an attacker?
claimed that she had been carjacked by a strange man with
Yeah.
scraggly hair who had shot them all. Well, her story fell apart pretty quickly because, first of all, her acting
residue?
when she came to the hospital was
Oh,
very
never mind.
unconvincing. She was like apparently extremely calm and like complaining about the car being ruined instead of her kids. And on top of that, well, 2 of the kids ended up surviving. And once they recovered to the
Oh,
point where they could
damn.
speak, they ended up just kind of saying it like it was, telling people what had actually happened. Well, Diane Downs ended
Wow.
up getting life in prison for this, as she deserves. Diane Downs has actually appeared before a parole board multiple times, but the issue is every time she gets an opportunity to be paroled, she just doubles down and will not admit that she actually did this. And
Oh, nah, she's sticking to a story.
It sticks to her story that like a random guy came and did this to her. A lot of investigators have described her as being extremely narcissistic. I'm going to be skipping a lot of these like super old guys, but here's kind of one that I thought I might mention just because it's kind of a interesting story. Phalaris. This guy is a ruler from ancient Greek times and is known to have used a horrible torture execution method called the Bronze Bowl. The Bronze
Oh,
Bowl
I've
was
heard
a
of this.
bronze
I've heard of
bowl-shaped
this.
statue, and it was hollow, and a fire would be lit underneath the statue, and you would climb inside of it, and of course, it would get extremely hot, and you'd basically just be grilled on the inside. And the idea was the screaming person would reverberate through the bowl. You know, Basil II. So Basil was the emperor.
What did they do with the bodies afterwards? Because, I mean, the person is cooked. I am accusing. Yes, they're old enough. They're old enough. Nobody's gonna sue me. I am accusing them of cannibalism. What did they do with the bodies afterwards? It's a very sick thing to want to cook people alive. What did you do with the bodies afterwards? I am accusing them of cannibalism. I am. I am.
Of the Byzantine Empire. And the one thing I wanted to mention about him just for this video is there's kind of this legend or story about him that after he defeated an army of Bulgarians, he is said to have managed to capture around 15,000 prisoners. And what he did is he fully
15,000?
blinded 99 of every 100 men, leaving one-eyed man in each cohort to lead the rest back to their ruler. Is this story completely true? Probably not, but it's like, I feel like this type of thing is what the word diabolical was invented to describe. Aztec priests. This is kind of an odd one, but I think it's just referring to like how a lot of old Aztec religion stuff involved a lot of human sacrifice. So I think that's kind of just what it's getting at here. Adam Britton. Adam Britton was this fairly popular zoologist guy, and he was featured in quite a few pretty prestigious documentaries produced by the BBC and National Geographic. Well, this guy had a pretty
What could he
horrible
have done?
behind the scenes, basically, he had a fetish for torturing and killing dogs.
Oh, that's the reaction. Oh my gosh, bro. Yo, we are roaming amongst fucking. Bro, what can we? There's no even word to describe the people we are roaming. Like, bro, there's a word for people who do things with animals. I can't remember what it is. And it's not furries to anybody who's gonna be like, oh, you're thinking about a furry. No, it's not furries, bro. There's a word, I can't think of it, but there's a word for people who do like certain acts with animals. I can't remember what it is.
And he would post videos of this on Telegram. Somebody found these videos and ended
Why?
up reporting it to the police.
Why?
And it led to his house getting raided. The Atomwaffen Division. This is one of the more modern neo-Nazi groups that emerged in like 2015-ish. They're kind of on the smaller side of things in terms of membership, but they have been linked to a couple different murder and terror plots. George Lincoln Rockwell. Sources
What a
will tell
bunch of losers.
you that this guy is probably one of the first examples of an American neo-Nazi. He was the founder of the American Nazi Party, and he was kind of a prominent figure for a time. Of course, this guy was super racist, hated Jews, all that kind of stuff. He is usually considered to be the guy who coined the phrase white power, and he literally drove a hate bus at one point. He ended up getting assassinated by another Nazi that he expelled from his party, and the guy killed him in revenge. William Dudley Pelley. Jesus, this guy was like an American fascist, anti-Semite, Nazi, occultist guy.
This is what they look up to? All these losers who are running around right now? This is what they look up to. Losers looking up to nothing but losers, bro.
He was born in 1890 and lived until 1965, and he garnered a decently sized following with his ideas, but the following didn't have a lot of like staying power, I don't think. He also said he could like levitate and stuff. Whatever momentum he managed to create with his movement ended up being pretty much instantly stamped out thanks to sedition laws getting a hold of him. Virgil Effinger. So basically, there is an offshoot of the KKK called the Black Legion, which is basically a more extreme version of the KKK.
On an
And this
ironic
guy
name.
was the leader of that for a time. Anders Breivik. So this guy was responsible for the 2011 Norway attacks, which is pretty much one of the biggest peacetime killing in Norway's history. In short, what happened was he had rigged a Volkswagen to explode outside of a Norwegian government building, and that killed 8 people, and then he went on basically
Oh my
attacked this
gosh,
summer
RIP
camp
to
and
them.
killed another 69 people. His
Oh
motive
my gosh. Oh my gosh, bro. What is their motivations, bro? Like, do these people not sit down? I mean, obviously they must be fucking crazy, but I fail to understand why. Do they not see the problems? Like, who is? I guess it's these random forums that people be in, bro. I don't even know. Some people do act so solo, but like you don't know, bro. That's the thing. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to speak about this and try to figure out what is going on in this person's mind. But at some point, you just have to say, I don't know. This person is nothing but vile and evil, and I don't know what could have caused this. That's all you can say.
largely came down to just some far-right extremist beliefs. He was very anti.
Yeah, what did I say? I talked about the forms, but though, like, how do you get that radicalized to do all these things?
Immigrant. Robert J. Matthews is probably most well known for starting a white supremacist group called The Order. For a time, these guys were committing a lot of like crazy GTA-esque heists where they were stealing money from armored vehicles and banks and stuff like that, sometimes getting away with quite a bit of money alongside some racially motivated murders. Robert Matthews ended up dying after he ended up in a standoff with the FBI at his house. Basically, the FBI had his house surrounded and he refused to come out. They were exchanging gunfire until eventually the FBI shot some flares into his house, thinking it would kind of like smoke him out. But it ended up starting a fire and he never came out and he just died in the flames. Charles
Wow.
Manson. I'm kind of surprised Charles Manson is as far as he is down on this iceberg, just because he's a pretty well-known figure. I will be honest though, coming into making this video, I really didn't know a whole lot about Charles Manson. I don't know why, it's
Same.
just kind of something I missed the boat on.
I've
Basically,
heard the
Charles
name,
Manson
but I
was
don't know
just this
what he
very
did.
troubled person from a young age, being in and out of prison many times during the younger years of his life. Eventually, though, he started building a group of followers, mostly women, who he convinced to live on a ranch out in California with him. He was able
Oh,
to
a
kind of position
cult?
himself as the leader of this group, pushing them into this kind of like fringe lifestyle that involved a lot of drugs, manipulation. And then there's stuff about him convincing his followers that he was the return of Jesus Christ, or how there was going to be an impending race war that he was calling
And
Helter
he is a
Skelter.
Nazi.
It's a lot to get into. It seems like he was largely able to build his following through just charisma and manipulation tactics. He also had experience previously as a pimp, which probably helped him in this area a little bit too. Charles Manson never actually directly killed anyone himself, but he did convince some of his followers to go kill people for him. At one point, killing a
I think
very
that's still a crime as well. Convincing others to kill others or themselves. I think that's a crime as well. I'm not too sure about that.
high-profile Hollywood star, the Weathermen. The Weathermen were this far-left group that emerged in the late 1960s and ran up until the mid-1970s in the United States. They were like this revolutionary guerrilla group that believed in some kind of like far left Marxist Leninist ideas, and they really opposed the US's involvement in the Vietnam War. Probably the most notable thing about these guys is they bombed some pretty notable locations in the United States. For example, they put a bomb in the bathroom of the United States Capitol building. This did some damage. They also planted a bomb in a women's restroom in the Pentagon. This also did quite a bit of damage.
Wow.
The bombings ended up doing a decent amount of financial damage, but they never actually killed anyone, and it was apparently done this way on purpose. Now, something kind of interesting I've seen while researching the Weathermen was initially the FBI thought that the Weathermen were a pretty serious threat to the country. And so they actually put a lot of resources in trying to capture and stop the Weathermen, even leaning into some illegal wiretapping and stuff like that. But in the end, it kind of turned out that this was a pretty bad miscalculation on the FBI's part because in terms of membership, the Weathermen at max only had support in like the low hundreds. And they were all like pretty inexperienced young college kids and people that just really weren't gonna pose a legitimate threat to the country beyond just being annoying. Peter Scully. I'm not gonna talk about this.
Damn, having bombs is considered mildly annoying. Yo, I mean, they didn't want to kill people. They just wanted to create a scene. Also, I fail to see what those bombings would have achieved. Like, what was the goal? If you do anything, especially like I'm speaking from a political standpoint, right? If you do anything, it's good they didn't want to kill any people, but if you do anything that involves bombs or anything of that sort to create a scene, you are not painting yourself correctly, right? In the eyes of the public. You're not creating an image of where you're like, oh yeah, this guy is fighting the good fight. You're just creating an image of now you're a terrorist on the other side. You know, there's right leaning terrorist and there's left leaning terrorist. You're just making yourself, you're bunching yourself up with them. If you were, and I guess in this, I guess this is how it, I guess this is how it is. You actually have to go after high profile people. Yeah, nah, never mind. Hey, all right, never mind. Never
This guy
mind.
too much because it's like beyond what's okay on YouTube. But he's the creator of the video Daisy's.
Also, this guy is doing this in one take. He's doing this 59-minute video in one take in one day, or I've not actually paid attention to his webcam and him personally. I've been just looking in the middle. But he's been doing this in one take. Obviously, there have been cuts, but wow.
Construction. I'm just
I'm gonna lie, some videos be taking me 2 days.
Sagawa is a truly
It take me 2 days, bro.
strange man. So
I've seen this one. I've seen him. I've seen the image. Rather, let me be specific. I've seen the image, but I've not heard his name, and I can't really remember the crimes he committed. But I'm pretty sure it involved cannibalism. Let's see. Let's find out.
he was this Japanese guy who was born into this really wealthy family. And in his
Yeah,
30s,
that I remember.
Issei ended up moving to France where he tried studying English there. But while in France, he invited a Dutch woman he met to his apartment under the pretext that they were going to study poetry. And he ended up killing this woman and eating her. Where the story
Oh,
kind of
shit.
goes off
Yeah,
the rails,
yeah.
though, is
So I
after
was
he
right.
got caught by the police, thanks to a pretty convoluted and pretty miraculous set of events, and probably a pretty good lawyer from his rich dad, he actually never ended up going to prison. He ended up being sent back to Japan, and he was able to walk as a free man, despite the fact he was
Wow.
literally a cannibal. Due to his crimes, he's gotten a lot of attention over the years. There are lots of interviews you can watch with him, and he's as creepy as you can imagine. He's said that the reason he wanted to cannibalize people was because he felt his own body was so frail and deficient that he wanted to kill and eat like vibrant specimens of human beings. So he remained a completely free man until he
Fucking
died. Chan Man
weird,
Lok.
bro.
So if you want to hear about the full story of this guy, I talk about this in this video here. It's this guy is responsible for the Hello Kitty murders. If you want to know more about that. Ariel Castro. This is another guy that I've actually talked about in a previous video. This guy abducted 3 young women in Cleveland and held them captive in his house for almost 10 years. Of course, he subjected them to basically the worst torture you can imagine while holding them captive. Meanwhile, while doing this, he was a school bus driver for the local
Oh
school
my
district.
gosh.
And he was a really bad school bus driver about that. After he got caught, he
Wow.
literally got over a 1,000-year sentence in prison. So Joseph Fritzl, this is another just
Feel like a lot of people on this list that we've gone through should have gotten that 1,000 years as well. I'm not gonna lie to you. We need to start updating the system, bro. We need to start updating. Certain crimes should be higher, bro. And that thing that I spoke about the probation thing or the bond thing, I feel like that should go into effect.
insane guy like Ariel who he ended up holding his daughter captive in his basement for 24 years. The way the daughter was able to escape was by convincing him to take her and her children to the hospital. Peter
Oh my
Curtin. This
gosh.
guy is sometimes referred to as the vampire of Dusseldorf because he was this crazy serial killer guy that would sometimes drink the blood of his victims. This guy also reportedly did things like
Can't you get Nah, never mind. Never
after he
mind.
committed a crime, he would flee the scene, and then after the police showed up, he would return to the scene, pretending
Yeah, I've heard of these before, like people coming back to the scene to see just to see their crime, see what people think, see the reactions of the public, of the police, of I don't know, bro. These people are weird, bro.
to just
For
be
lack of better words, these people are weird.
like a random citizen so he could talk to police about what had just happened. Yeah, this guy got the guillotine. The Monster of Florence. So this is a pretty complex case, but basically there's this province in Italy called Florence, and from 1968 up until like 1985, there was a string of murders in the area that had a strange resemblance to one another. The killer targeted and gunned down couples who were parked in secluded spots on the city's outskirts. Usually the victims were hanging out in their cars. They were like in these like lover's lane type spots. And this guy would pull up on them and kill them.
Oh my
Now, there's
gosh.
been a lot of
The nigga looks evil. He actually just looks evil.
speculation and investigation into who this guy is. And people have even been sent to jail over this case, and there's been many suspects. But till this day, no one's really been able to track down with confidence who the Monster of Florence really is. Carl Panzram. So this guy was unhinged. He was born in 1891, and he really just bounced around the entire country, committing many crimes, burglaries, murders, rapes, basically everything you can imagine. The part of his life that stood out the most to me was at one point he broke into then President's William Howard Taft's mansion, stole a bunch of jewelry and handgun from the mansion, and used this to get money to buy a yacht that he used to sail around the world and continue his crimes. When he eventually
Wow.
was captured and put in prison,
Really committed.
he basically was able to write a memoir of his life story that got turned into a book. And you can read this book, and as you might imagine, many of the
Wow.
details are pretty brutal. Although it's hard to say exactly how much of it is truth. And yeah, he ended
Wow.
up getting the death penalty. Tokyo subway gasters. This is just referring to the people who were a part of the cult Aum Shinrikyo, who went on to commit the Tokyo subway sarin gas attacks. The Aum Shinrikyo cult in general was just insane. The beliefs and teachings of them were insane. But on top of that, like at one point, they
Look at this members, bro. Look how many people there are here. And to all those who think you can't get convinced to be into a cult, you'd be surprised. Like people think you have to be stupid to be involved in cults. I will tell you this right here, right now. You don't have to be stupid to be involved or convinced to join a cult. These people are, well, not these people. I assume these are members, but like the leaders or the cult owners or the hierarchy, whatever those people are called, they are very smart. They are very smart. They are very cunning. They are very convincing. And if you think about it, it is their job to be this good at manipulating people. It is their job to be that good to manipulating people. Now, obviously, they do attack people who are in a weakened state, probably lost their parents, lost their lovers, or whatever, or been socially isolated. One of those things. but you'd be surprised at how good they are at convincing people to join these cults. You don't have to be stupid to be involved in a cult. The same way, the same way anybody can fall for propaganda, because propaganda is designed to be very good at manipulating people. You don't have to be stupid to fall for propaganda, bro. I'm just gonna stay here right now as while I have the opportunity.
Bought like a helicopter from some Russian guys because they were trying to like spray sarin gas across Tokyo from above.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
insane. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh.
These are real life
Rajneesh moved from
villains.
India to the United States in the 1980s and started a commune in Oregon. What he did is he had just garnered a lot of followers through his cult, and so he had a bunch of money, and he used this money to buy a giant ranch near the city called the Dalles. Now, this commune would eventually grow to have over 2,000 people on it, and he was like the leader of it, and he would share his teachings and his beliefs with the people. The teachings of this cult he created are just very bizarre and hard to pin down. It was kind of this weird combination of various Eastern religions like Buddhism and stuff like that, but it also had this weird kind of like Western twist to it with elements from like Western psychology, and there was also like free love stuff. Anyway, this commune, of course, ended up growing to have a ton of people in it.
He's
And
not
so
original, by the way. So all those who were like, damn, like he's not original. These people are usually copies of other people. They're usually copies of other. Oh my gosh, I got his toes all over
well,
my
they ended up
screen.
getting into
But
conflicts.
yeah, they're usually copying somebody. They're copying, yo, bro. If you, I think I watched a video about this on my channel. Me talking about how cult leaders who do this like whole mysticism thing, like monk type thing, they're all copies of somebody, bro.
With other little towns in the area, and they were doing things like they wanted to manipulate an election in the area, so they tried importing homeless people to try and vote for them. Well, that
Wow.
didn't work. And then also, this commune was responsible for the very first bio attacks in US history, and what they did is
What the fuck? Yo, he might be original. And I'm not saying this like as a joke, but I'm just referring back to my previous statements. He might be original because what the fuck, bro? What the fuck, bro? Yo, not gonna lie, this is one of the worst videos I've watched in my lifetime. Not like the video is bad, but the subjects we are talking about, like it's bad. Like I wouldn't I wouldn't want to be this creator. I wouldn't want to be involved in this type of niche or whatever it is. Like I wouldn't want to be in that shit, bro. This shit is fucking terrible.
they basically went around fast food restaurants around the Dalles and planted salmonella into the salad bars. The idea was if they just
Wow.
made enough people sick, they could weaken voter turnout. This salmonella attack would make over 700 people sick. Initially, they weren't
Oh
planning
my
on using
gosh.
salmonella either. They were going to try out typhoid fever, which can kill people. They ended up backing off and just using
Oh.
salmonella.
I mean,
Rajneesh,
at
the
least they
cult
were
leader,
smart in that sense, but wow.
just also did a ton of insane stuff. Like, it said that he owned 90 Rolls Royces just because his followers would give him so much money. Like, there's videos online you can find of him
Wow.
driving his Rolls Royce past like just hundreds of his adoring cult followers. The
Wow.
commune ended up dissolving for just a multitude of reasons that I'm not going to get into, and Rajneesh would end up getting deported back to India because of issues with his passport and other immigration stuff. Dwight York.
No crime. No crime. He did not get arrested. Wow. Yo, these people are operating at a different league, bro. To do all these things and still not face, bro, no words.
Dwight York is best known for founding something called the Nuwaubian Nation. He initially started getting a little bit of
Oh,
prominence in the late
brother.
60s when he kind of was preaching
I
some.
hate these people so much because one, I am black man, obviously, but It's like these people who don't grow up in that shit that they talk about. You know how they are like black people be like, yeah, in Africa, that. Like, nigga, have you been there? Now I'm saying, were you born in that shit? Because a lot of shit that these people who try to present themselves as, African this, African that, like a lot of them are not really involved in that actual shit. Some of them may present certain things as like, oh yeah, it's good, good, right? But in reality, that shit is bad. That shit has been trying to be, those countries that are involved, those African countries that are involved in that shit, are trying to ban that shit, are trying to stop that shit, right, from happening. And I'm not gonna go into specifics about this shit because it's a whole different thing. Then they would paint certain things as bad, but in the meantime, it's good. Like, bro, like it's a weird thing, and I hate these people because they're trying to present themselves. These are the LARPers. Everybody's LARPing, right? These are the LARPers I hate. I hate them so much.
His ideas in New York. He would preach about Nubianism, which is kind of like this weird mix of like black supremacist ideas mixed with
Yeah,
like
yeah.
ancient Egyptian UFO,
I
and then there's
hate
like some
these people, bro.
conspiracy
I hate
theory and
them.
Illuminati stuff. After his following ended up getting pretty big, he ended up building this compound in Georgia called Tama Ray,
Wow.
which this is what it looks like. Like he literally built like a pyramid and a little sphinx. It looks like a miniature amusement park. Him and his followers would live and operate on this 476 acre piece of land for a while. Well, as you might imagine, though, his position as the leader of the Nubian nation wouldn't last forever because it would later come out that he was like an extreme creep, like possibly the world's most extreme creep of all
Thousands.
time. And I think for this video, that's probably where I will leave it. Peter Popoff. So Peter Popoff is one of these televangelist guys who go on late
Oh, I
night
hate
television
I
slots.
hate these niggas as well. And I know it sounds crazy, me start saying like I hate you, especially when you've heard about all the other ones who have committed egregious crimes. I say I hate these people because I know these are the people who are living among us and who are in somewhat normal, but not. You know what I mean? Like, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, bro. Like, obviously, I'm gonna hate those other ones as well, like those molesters, abusers, and all of that. I hate them, obviously, but that's an obvious thing. These people are existing, given these ones that I'm saying like I hate, are existing side by side with us. They're not operating in secret, so we can see them more often, and we see a lot of them. Like there's a lot of tele evangelists, whatever. There's a lot of those people who create this whole African, like, well, this weird shit that exists like in our real lifetime that we see because they don't operate in secret. That's why I say I hate them because they are like right here, right now. I can hate them and see them. We didn't know about all those other people until like they get caught or die or something like that.
For boomers and basically try to make themselves look like
I hate
religious
these niggas as
prophets
well,
to
bro.
trick vulnerable people into sending them money. There's so much you could talk about with Mr. Popoff here, but probably one of the more notable things to come from his story is he used to run this program where he would give these religious speeches in front of enormous crowds of his followers. And he would claim that through God, he would be able to heal people. And what he would do is he would
It's funny because, bro, the funny thing about this shit, bro, is that these niggas have been so around. You would think people would stop falling for their shit. You would think one day, like, everybody can look at history and say, damn, these niggas have been preaching the same shit over and over again. But no, they don't see it. They don't see it, bro. Like, how are you not seeing that these people have been doing the same thing over and over again? Truly baffled,
seemingly
bro.
pull random people from the crowd that he had never met before,
Which
name
is a
whatever
lie.
sicknesses or ailments might be hurting them,
Which is a
and
lie.
then
Like,
in
this
that
shit is so
moment,
old,
magically
bro.
cure them. He would bless the sicknesses away. Now, some people who were skeptical of this act ended up pulling up to his show one time, and they brought a radio scanner. And when they tuned into the radio signals being broadcast nearby, they realized that his wife was feeding him information about the people in the crowd he should pick through a radio earpiece he was wearing. And she was collecting the information about these people before the show ahead of time. So if you needed evidence that his miracles aren't real, I mean, there's that. He's also done other just ridiculously stupid things like selling miracle water or miracle
Oh my
sand that
gosh,
apparently can cure
brother.
ailments or eliminate all your debt or stuff
Niggas
like
trying
that.
to
Benny Hinn. This is
make
another
himself
one of
Jesus.
these televangelist guys, and he's probably one of the more popular ones out there. And he also claims that he can kind of like magically heal people of their ailments by blessing them. This guy has managed to make a ton of money doing this. He basically owns a private jet through all the donation money he's received, and he goes on like extravagant vacations and owns a super nice house and all that. One thing to note about him is his shows are extremely dramatic. Like usually, like the way these shows go is like when he's healing somebody, he will literally walk up to them and shove them to the ground, and it looks ridiculous. And if you're wondering, yes, he has literally injured people before by doing this. Wagner Group. This is a private military group that's been used in Russia a lot. They largely recruit prisoners. Adolfo Constanzo.
I've actually heard of them.
A drug cult. If that sounds bad, that's because it is. Basically, he ran a drug smuggling operation that worked in tandem with this cult, and the cult had this part of it
Wow.
where they believed that
This gotta be the first time I've heard this shit. This gotta be, he runs a cult, right? And at the same time, they traffic drugs. Wow. Now that I think about it, I've never actually thought of those two being hand in hand. But now that I think about it, I can see it. I can see it happening. Wow. I genuinely never thought about it. Wow.
if they sacrificed humans, it would protect their drug smuggling activities from being discovered from law
Oh my
enforcement.
gosh.
And quite a few people ended up being sacrificed. So this was pretty horrible. Keith Rainier. So in the late 90s, this guy created this cult multi-level marketing pyramid scheme thing called Nexium. Now, at its surface, Nexium would basically just charge super high prices for these classes or lectures or workshops that were centered around self-improvement or self-actualization. And they featured like combination of like different self-help methods and religious ideologies and like hypnosis techniques.
These
In
things usually start off good. Like these type of cults, they start off good, but then the owner's ego or something, I don't know, something just happens where now like these people start doing insane things, abusing their members, starving their members. Like they start do I don't know. Somebody needs to study that pivot. That pivot where they go from helping people to abusing people. That pivot needs to be studied so we know what is happening right there. Why they go from this to that.
Nexium, Keith Rainier positioned himself as the head of the whole thing and marketed himself as this like super genius savant that you ought to believe in if you want to make your life better. Like, for example, on some of this old marketing material for Nexium, you know, he's claiming that he was able to speak in full sentences at the age of 2, was a
Oh,
judo
brother.
champion at 11, taught himself
Oh,
college mathematics
brother.
at age 13.
This
was a
guy
concert
sucks.
pianist at age 12, had a Guinness World Record highest IQ. Anyway, so not only was
The funny thing about all this shit,
record high,
all of it can be proven by simply looking it up. How did they fall for this? How did they fall all of this? The internet was around by these times. In August 2008, King conceptualized the World Ethical Foundations. Yeah. All of this, you can look it up. You can look it up.
IQ. Anyway, so not only was Nexium obviously a pretty
Nexium is a
manipulative
tough name, though.
and parasitic MLM pyramid scheme, it turns out that there is a secret subgroup within Nexium called DOS, which stood for Dominus Obsequious Sororium. That's Latin. If you want to look up what it means, go ahead. And basically what it was he created this like secret group of women that he had control over, and he would have them do his bidding and basically be his own personal slave. Things within DOS
Wow.
really got out of hand, with members being branded or being put on super restrictive diets or being
What did
forced
I
to do
say?
labor. Fortunately,
What
this
did I
scheme
say?
would eventually be brought down after one of the members ended up speaking out. And Keith Rainier ended up getting a good 120 years in prison. The Order of the Solar Temple is a new religion type
Why
cult
do I feel like I've heard of this one before?
that began in 1984, and it mostly operated in Switzerland, Canada, and France. This cult was a very interesting mix of
I
New
think
Age
I know the
ideas.
name,
They
but
claimed
not
to
the
be
actions.
descendants of the Knights Templar, and they also implemented ideas from like Freemasonry, ufology, other secret society stuff too. It was really a little bit of this, a little bit of that type cult. The thing that this cult is largely remembered for, though, is the leaders organized a mass suicide of their followers because they thought that
Yeah,
there
that
would be
is probably
doomsday
why
at
I
some
know
point in
about
the
this.
mid-90s, and they thought that if they took their own lives,
It's probably
their
why I know about
spirits
this.
would be transmitted to Sirius. It was kind of like a Heaven's Gate type thing, if you're familiar. Well, all in all, 72 people died from this, and probably worst of all, the people in the cult that decided they didn't want to take their own lives were helped, and by helped, I mean the other members ended up murdering them. Roke Thoreau. This is the leader of the Anthill Kids. I've talked about this one in a previous video.
This is a guy that I said looks like Rick Rubin.
Basically, this guy led a group of people in Canada to live out in the wilderness with him, and he positioned himself as the leader of this cult where he basically was constantly abusing members. There are lots of videos you can watch about this guy. Trey Eric Sessler, also known as Mr. Anime. This guy had a fairly decent sized anime review channel on YouTube for a time, but in 2000,
I swear I've seen a video, like a recent video, not by him, but a video that said, I hate Mr. Anime. I didn't watch it, but I was like, damn, isn't the nigga just talking about anime? Like, keep in mind, I didn't even know who Mr. Anime was, but by the name Mr. Anime, I assume you're just somebody who speaks about anime. This feels so crazy because I genuinely, I don't know if was it Mr. Anime? But I know I seen a video that said, I hate Mr. Anime. I swear, bro. I swear. I feel like, bro, I swear I seen a video that said that
2012, he
recently as
basically
well.
ended up murdering his entire family. And he was initially planning on taking the killing spree even farther, but then he didn't. Boy in the Box
Wow.
Abusers. So this entry is referring to a very bizarre case. The summary of this is basically one day a college student in Philadelphia was kind of minding their own business when inside of a bush, they discovered a cardboard box with a young kid's body in it. The kid showed
Oh
pretty
my
clear signs of
gosh.
abuse. However, at the same time, it was clear that someone was sort of taking care of him before he passed away. Like, he had clearly recently received a haircut and his nails were clipped. The thing about this is this case
Yeah, oh
went
my God, bro.
completely cold for pretty much 70 years. No one could
70
figure out who this
years?
kid belonged to or why he was killed, or just recently through some DNA forensic analysis, they were able to track down the parents of this kid, but the parents passed away a long time ago. It's still considered an open case till this day. What happened to this kid exactly is unknown.
Oh
and I
my
think the entry
gosh,
Boy
bro.
in the Box Abusers is just referring to whoever actually killed this person. God and Boxa from the Nth Room case. So these are both South Korean guys who ran Telegram channels that were hosting illicit images of people that they were blackmailing. These guys would use different strategies.
I've
to
heard
lure
these
in women
scams before.
into providing them with revealing
Not gonna lie, if
images.
somebody ever sends me an email, a telegram, or whatever, saying like, we have your nudes or we have a video of you or a picture of you jacking off and all that shit, and if you want to, you know, save yourself from embarrassment and pay us a certain amount, not gonna lie, my response is gonna be be release them. I don't give a fuck. Because what's gonna happen? People are gonna laugh. Do we not all do that shit? I say, do not most people do it? It's not like I'm doing anything criminal. Like my general response is, and I'm still keeping this, no matter how big I get, like release them. I don't care. I don't care. Like, bro, you think you're gonna blackmail me because of yo, bro? Like this shit is weird. But I do understand some people want to keep themselves private in that way. I wonder how that. I feel like those things are still happening nowadays. I feel like they're still happening.
Sometimes they'd post ads where they said they were seeking models. And so when the respondents shared revealing pictures, they would then start using them to blackmail them into sending more, or they would feed them a phishing link that would grab personal information that they could then
Wow.
use to blackmail them.
Fucking
Both of these
losers, bro.
Telegram channels that these guys hosted were disturbingly large and had like
260,000 people. Yeah, I feel like all of them should be linked to the crime as well. 260,000 users. I feel like they should also
so many
be
members in
linked
them,
to the
it's like
crime.
hard to believe. Apparently they were like sharing the home addresses of the people that they were blackmailing and then putting into the
Wow.
Telegram chats with the viewers. So it was
Wow.
Telegram
Viewers
snuff
should be
rings.
linked
This is a
as
pretty
well.
straightforward idea. This is just referring to the idea that like Telegram is this app that people will share like snuff and other illicit materials on, because people have this idea that Telegram is like somehow more secure than other messaging apps, even though I don't really think it is. Monkey torture ringleaders. I think this entry is just referring to how for a while on
I
like
feel like
YouTube,
I've
Facebook,
read
and
this
other
before.
platforms, there was a pretty big problem of people sharing monkey torture videos. This was actually a thing for a while. You could look up monkey torture into these platforms and there would be pretty big communities of people sharing these videos. Till this day, there isn't really a great explanation on why this was a thing, but I would say it's most likely that it was just kind of this horrible fetish thing that people were into. Human traffickers, I would agree. Those guys are pretty bad. Unit 731 scientists who became CEOs. Yeah, I mean, I talked about Unit 731 earlier in the video, but as you might remember, I mentioned that after World War II ended, the United States struck a deal saying that if Unit 731 handed
Shares
over information about
information.
their experiments, all of the people involved with the program would be granted immunity. And so, since a bunch of these people were granted immunity, they went on to live like fairly standard lives, becoming like CEOs and leaders of some pretty large
Wow.
groups. The Somerton Manhandlers. This is an entry that I don't think fits super well on this iceberg, but I thought I'd talk about it anyway because it's kind of interesting. Basically, this park in Australia called Somerton Park, this man was randomly found dead on the ground. No apparent reason. No one could identify him, and till this day, there's still not really a perfect answer for who this guy is. The circumstances of
Damn.
his death were very bizarre, with the exact cause of death being unclear, his identity, where he came from, if it was suicide or not, if it was murder. All of this is pretty hazy. I think what this entry is getting at is some people have speculated that this guy was like a Russian spy or something, and perhaps his handlers or the people who were like guiding him through his mission or something killed him, and obviously those guys would be pretty bad, so that's why they would be on the iceberg. Although I think nowadays the leading theory behind who this guy is much more mundane, and he probably wasn't a Russian spy or anything like that. Psycho Sam. There was this guy named Richard Alden Samuel McCroskey, and he was a horrorcore rapper. Horrorcore is this like style of music where you're rapping about super horrific, gruesome, torturous things over these haunting
Why?
beats. You can actually go listen to this guy's music
Why?
right now, and he went by the name Psycho Sam online. What seems to have happened with this guy
Why?
is he was in this relationship with this girl, and reports say that they got into some sort of argument. It seems like it might have to do with Sam believing they were in an exclusive relationship when they really weren't, although I can't confirm that 100%. And it led to
My boy
him
got cheated on.
murdering her and her family and attempting to hide the evidence. It didn't go very well.
Wow.
He's in prison for life now, but his YouTube channel and his music is still up if that's something you're interested in for some reason. Vlado Teneski. Jesus, this one's crazy. Basically, this guy worked as a journalist in Macedonia, but while working as a journalist, he ended up going on a murder spree, killing 3 women in the area. Now, the crazy thing about this story is then, as a journalist, he went on to write articles about the killings that he committed.
Oh
And in
yeah,
fact,
this
the
nigga's
way that he got
sick.
caught was in one of the articles.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's probably like revealed the details that were not found by the police or were not given to journalists at that time. That's probably how he got caught.
That he wrote about one of the women, he accidentally gave away more details about the
Yeah,
killing than what was
yeah.
currently publicly known. Like, it was something like he like accidentally gave away the detail that he murdered one of the women with a cable, which was not something that was already publicly known. And so this, of course, left the police feeling pretty suspicious about him and ultimately led to his downfall. Edward Paisnell. So this guy has also been known as the Beast of Jersey. And his whole thing was he would break into people's houses at night and assault women and children, and he would wear a
Oh my
costume while doing
gosh,
this. This
bro.
is what his
Oh my
costume looked.
fucking god, bro. I, s- I know it probably seems like I'm just having the same reaction over and over again, but what else can you even say to these weirdos, bro? What else can we have? Else of a reaction can we have to these weirdos? I don't know if y'all clocked what happened, what he was actually doing in the bottom left, but if you go back, you would see. But bro, like there's nothing, there's no other reaction you can have as a normal person. There's no other reaction you can have other than the fact that these, oh, bro,
Like,
oh my
he did
gosh.
this to like 12, 13 people. The way he got caught was he was kind of just randomly pulled over for running a red light. And when they went to go check his car, they found his costume in the back, which is like a total
Wow.
Scooby-Doo type story arc. When questioned why he had the costume in his car, he said he was looking to attend an orgy, but he didn't want to get identified. The Pegasus spyware creators. So what this entry is just referring to, I think, is the NSA has this incredibly powerful spyware tool called Pegasus, which basically can allow them to access anybody's smartphone at any time and access pretty much all of their contents. And this entry is just saying that the creators of this tool are evil. Unit 121 North Korean hackers. This is just like the North Korean state offensive
Crypto
hacking group.
hackers.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It really helps me out and helps me make more.
Yo, shout out Parallel Pipes, yo. It's chills, yo. I usually would say like something at the end, but this video just drained me, bro. It drained me. It was nothing. It was terrible after terrible. For lack of better words, it was terrible after terrible. That's how much terrible there was in this terrible thing. It's Chio, yo. I'm out of here.